Hey, church family, I wanted to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement as we prayerfully prepare for the future that's before us. Now, without debate, 2021, it's already a record-breaking year. Not only have we watched agent provocateurs inciting angry activists to engage in civil disobedience there at our nation's capital, but now we're also watching as the House prepares for the second impeachment trial of former President Trump. And in order to understand how historic this actually is, well, it should be noted that no American president has ever sat through an impeachment trial after leaving office. And yet here we go. This is record breaking. And not only is this a record breaking year because, this is the first time in American history that a president has ever been impeached twice, but this is the first time in American history that a former president is waiting for an impeachment trial while a sitting president is being brought up on impeachment charges. This is happening at the same time. That's right. It was actually last Thursday when Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, she launched an impeachment effort against U.S. President Joe Biden for something that he did when he was vice president. And to sum it up, Congresswoman Greene has filed articles of impeachment, which actually claim that Biden used his power during his tenure as vice president by allowing his son Hunter to siphon cash off of foreign powers, including Russia and China. So just to sum all this up, we have articles of impeachment filed against President Biden while simultaneously waiting for the impeachment trial of former President Trump, who was already impeached once before, only to then be acquitted by the Senate. Wow, all of this, and we haven't even made it past January yet. I mean, this is just an incredible year. Without debate, 2021 is going to be an extremely, exciting year for us. And all of this, despite the fact that President Biden continues to encourage America, to join together in unity. I'll remind you, it was during his inaugural address when President Biden declared, with the campaign over, it's time to put the anger and the harsh rhetoric behind us and come together as a nation. And then he called for the restoration of our nation by insisting this. He says, it's time for America to unite and to heal. Sadly, on that same night of Biden's inauguration, it was actually, there was all kinds of violent riots that broke out in Seattle and San Francisco, Portland and Denver. And just to be clear, the riots weren't being caused by angry Trump supporters as they were thinking it would, but instead the violent riots were actually caused by Antifa anarchists who are determined to oppose every form of governance. Now remember, it was actually last September during a presidential debate. That's when Biden referred to Antifa as an idea and not an organization or a militia. That's what he said. President Trump then went on to warn Joe Biden about his point of view by declaring this. He says, Antifa is a dangerous radical group and you ought to be careful with them. They will overthrow you in 2 seconds. And just as Trump warned, the idea of Antifa, well, it took to the streets on the night of Biden's inauguration. And this idea, seemed to be organized. They were organized as they vandalized the Democratic Party headquarters in several cities. And listen, the idea of Antifa was also carrying a banner in Portland, which read this. It says, "We don't want Biden. We want revenge." Another sign stated, "We are ungovernable." Wow. Now, as we consider how quickly these far-left activists turned against President Joe Biden, I can't help but to wonder, how can we ever achieve political unity here in America when the divide between the far left and the far right is so extreme that the only way the extremists on both sides will ever work together is to simply burn down our country? Oh, God help us. Whether we're talking about the invasion of our U.S. Capitol or the occupation of our state capitals, extremists from both sides of the aisle are helping to create the conditions for the communist takeover of our country. In order to prove my point, I would appeal to the warnings presented by a pastor who escaped from the Socialist Republic of Romania. According to this pastor, who's currently pastoring a church in Chicago, he says that communists will always seek to establish unity by means of force. And the reason why is because people will never voluntarily give up their freedoms, their possessions, or their privileges. So according to this pastor who watched all this go down in Romania, The communists use conflict in order to take control of a community by force. They use conflict so that they can come in and solve the conflict problem, which ends up taking away possessions and privileges and freedoms. We saw this happen after 9/11, and now we're watching it again after the Capitol riot that just occurred. This plan was actually exposed back in 1963 when the 45 goals of the communists were presented before the House of Representatives. And according to this list of goals, the communists have been creating the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects of the American tradition, and that students and special interest groups should rise up and use united force to solve economic, political, and social problems. That's what they've been instigating. That's what they've been drumming up here in America, so that, as these riots and all this, continues to develop, then they can come in with the military and just take control. And as we consider the way in which these violent riots are becoming more and more common, we shouldn't be surprised when we watch the Biden administration begin to achieve unity here in America with executive orders that will begin to rob us of our rights and our liberties, all in the name of peace and all in the name of safety. That's right, they're going to cry peace and safety as they begin to take away our freedoms and our possessions and our privileges. And if history repeats itself, listen, we know that this is only going to result in the oppression of Americans and ultimately in our poverty. With that being the case, it's crucial for every Christian to remember that the only hope that we have for the unity that we all desire, well, it's actually found in our connection and our commitment to Christ Jesus. I like the way that Jesus put it when he prayed for the unity of the church. It's actually found in John chapter 17. There we find Jesus. He's crying out to God the Father, and he says, I do not pray for these alone, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they all may be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that you sent me. And the glory which you gave me, I have given them, that they may be one, just as we are one, I in them, and you in me, that they may be made perfect in one, and that the world may know that you have sent me and have loved them as you have loved me. Here in this prayer, Jesus was praying for unity. He was praying for the unity of the church, and knowing that he is the only hope that we have for achieving true unity, we must stop praying for a political solution. We must stop hoping for politicians to solve these problems, and instead, let's simply lead people to Jesus Christ so that they can be one with the one who alone can make us all one. With this as the goal, let's continue preaching the gospel of grace, and let's fight the good fight of faith for the benefit of our nation and for the glory of God.